This program is brought to you by KLW Art, creating original and custom hand-painted oil paintings. Visit us online at klwart.com.
Hello, and welcome back to the studio. I'm Kevin Wagner. A lot of folks have been asking when I'm going to be doing another painting video, and those are coming. Been going through quite a bit over the past year or so. I've been doing a lot of reorganizing with my painting ideas and getting my studio and everything basically situated and more organized, more efficient, so I can more efficiently work. I also had a few health issues that I'm working through. Been through quite a bit of difficulties at work that I'm also struggling with. Hopefully those will settle down pretty soon. And even this last spring, my washer and dryer behind that I used to have behind me, those went out, and so I had to tear apart half the basement to get those out and get the new ones in. So hopefully things are settling down. I'm hopefully going to be able to get some more paintings done here in the near future. So anyways, I wanted to get everyone caught up to date with that. And today, what we're going to do, it's not exactly an oil paint video, but what I'm going to do is kind of take you around my studio here and show you exactly how I make some of these paintings and the tools I use, and hopefully give you some ideas that you can get started with. So first thing we're going to look at is the oil paints that we use. I use Bob Ross oil paints, mainly because I'm familiar with how they work and everything. That's how who I've been watching on TV quite a bit and everything. I've got all his DVDs and everything. So I'm familiar with these and how they work. So basically what we're doing is a wet-on-wet painting technique. You want to basically start off with the thickest paint you can start with, and then basically gradually thin it down as you add more layers and more details, work forward and everything. You can also, if you have a paint that's kind of on the thin side, what you can do is take some cardboard, and this will draw the oils out of the paint and dry out the paint a little bit to make it a little bit more thicker for you to work with. So I usually keep a few sheets of these. Basically I get new cardboard boxes like at groceries, and basically cut them into sheets like this, and then I use these to lay out some paint to draw the oils out, dry them out, and make them a little bit more suitable for what we're using them for. To apply the paints to our paintings, we have a variety of brushes and other tools that we use. Two of the most important brushes that you'll use are your 2-inch and 1-inch brushes. These are apply base coats of liquid white, liquid black, liquid clear, all that, as well as do a lot of landscape applications of the paints and everything. It's good to have a couple of these, of each of these. Next is your blender brush. This is good for blending out clouds and other blending effects on the painting where you don't want to have too much of a distortion of of what you've put on the canvas, but you want just enough to slightly blend things for like misting the base of a mountain, that kind of thing. We also have two sizes of round brushes. These, we've got the 1-inch and the 1/2 inch. These are used a lot of times for foliage and trees, such as the ones in the on the painting that you see on your screen right now. I've seen other applications for applying like sand and other stuff, like in beach scenes, that kind of thing. So a lot of variety of uses that you can use for these as well. You also have a 1-inch oval brush. I haven't used these in any of my paintings yet. I'm wanting to, because I've seen some of the effects that have been used in foliage work and that kind of thing. And I like the effects that these have on Bob Ross's paintings, so I'm hoping to get to use these before too long. We also have two sizes of fan brushes. We have a number 6 fan brush and a number 3 fan brush. These are excellent for all kinds of detail work and other applications throughout the painting. We also have a filbert brush, a number 6 filbert brush. This is used for making rocks, for seascapes, for putting in the foam and stuff for like on a seascape, that sort of thing. There's all kinds of applications that this can be used for as well. So Bob Ross said that this is probably one of the most important brushes you'll have, and this is your liner brush. You can get in and do all kinds of little detail work on trees and reeds along like shorelines and that kind of thing. And also, most importantly, this is also for important for putting in your signature on your finished painting. And we also have two sizes of palette knives, large and small palette knives. These are great for putting in rocks, trails, paths, mountains, you name it. A lot of stuff can be done with this. I've even seen Bob Ross do a couple paintings where he, in half an hour, he did nothing but use a palette knife for the paintings. So these are very important as well. So for mixing your paints, you want to make sure you have a good surface to mix them on. Granted, a lot of blending goes on the canvas, but you also want to be doing a lot of mixing off the canvas as well. One of the things you want to use is a nice palette. This is a plexiglass palette, I believe it's plexiglass, from bobross.com. One thing I've done with mine, he always has his palette set up the same way on the show, and that's one thing I always recommend too, is to basically always put your colors basically always in the same order that each time you paint. That way you're not hunting and mixing colors and getting wrong combinations that you don't want. Mine, I basically took out of this catalog some of the labels for the paints and cut them out and put them on the back so you can see them through the clear plexiglass. Granted, I'm familiar enough now with the paints to not have to go through the having them labeled, but you know, if you're just starting out and you're learning the paints, learning what paints you're using, sometimes putting a label underneath the clear plexiglass so you know what paint's what, that might help you out too. A lot of times, I know my first oil painting that I did for here on YouTube, I had the palette on my arm like this, which is how it's designed to do. What I found as I've painted, though, it's sometimes easier just to put it on a flat table surface to basically allow me to have both hands free for cleaning the brushes off and that sort of thing. What I'm using for table, though, I actually have two sets of utility shelves down here in the basement. I've got them set up so they're actually more like, I basically turn them into 3 tables, and basically I use these for around my model railroad layout. And this one, since it's right here by my studio, I use this for putting my palette on, so that way I have a nice smooth surface. I got room here, and 2 for laying dirty brushes, that kind of thing. Typically when I'm painting, though, I'll put a sheet of newspaper over this to make it a little easier to clean. And then, like I said, you know, my dirty brushes I can set here on this as well next to the palette, and I'm not getting paint all over everything. Before starting any painting, you of course first need to prep the canvas, and typically the products you want to use are the liquid white, liquid black, and liquid clear colors from bobross.com. Basically, this provides a slick surface to apply the paints and mix them on canvas, whereas if you start out with a dry canvas, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to blend colors on the canvas. But these are the three basic colors that we typically start off painting with. And then you can also prep the canvas before putting any of these colors on using the gessos. Typically we use black gesso. You can also use gray and white to, depending on how you're coloring the background and any background images that you want to pull through the canvas to kind of make look like a silhouette of like maybe background trees or something like that. You can also use acrylic colors like alizarin crimson, burnt umber, and burnt sienna. I just got these three in, I haven't used them yet, but these will also make some other effects for like sunset and like early morning scenes where you want like oranges or brown colors to show through the in the background. So these will come in handy with that. These are the three main types of base coats that we use to start out a painting. Here's some of the other tools that I like to use when doing my oil paintings. For applying the gessos and the acrylic paints, if you're just doing a base coat of gesso, just coloring the canvas, you can use these disposable foam brushes. They come in packs of like 50 at Hobby Lobby. Those are handy for that. If you're doing more detailed work for like putting in trees and other stuff with your gessos, I'd recommend using a more sturdy foam brush, like what you'd find at a hardware store or something like that. You can wash these out when you're done with them, but these will hold their shape a little bit more when you apply the gessos rather than the disposable brushes. One thing too, I forgot to mention earlier, with the acrylic paints like the gessos and everything like that, you don't want to use your good natural hair brushes. Like the 2-inch brushes, these are natural hair brushes. You basically do not want to use water to wash these out, because it will deteriorate the bristles. They'll break down on you and you'll wear out your brush a lot faster than if you use the regular cleaner system that I will be getting to here in a moment. But basically I took and got another fan brush to use for just specifically for the gessos. Also at the hobby store I go to, I got some other non-natural bristle liner brushes to use for applying gessos on the backgrounds for like when putting in tree limbs, that kind of thing. And that way I'm not ruining my good brushes on the by washing them out with water and using the acrylics on them. Another thing that you can use to apply the gessos and acrylics in the background are these natural sponges. You can get these at Hobby Lobby as well. You can tear chunks out of these, tear them in half, that kind of thing to use them. Basically they're kind of irregular shaped and everything, so that way you're not doing anything symmetrical or anything in the background. But these are good for like putting in like background bushes and stuff with the acrylics. For applying the acrylics as well as your liquid colors, I typically will use plastic plates. I have not used paper plates because paper plates, I'm afraid, would draw the moisture out of the liquid colors, and that would then dry out the paints a lot faster. I also use these for when applying gessos, so I can put some gessos out and use the brush then to apply that to the canvas. You can also, if you can find them, you can use larger dinner plates are divided up into segments, and you can use that for if you have multiple liquid colors or multiple gessos, and that way you don't have to worry about your paints mixing prematurely in that. I also like to use these plastic picnic bowls. Basically, when I'm doing a painting, I have my cleaning bucket that has paint thinner in it, but I like to keep a bowl half filled with thinner, so that way I can have something clean to thin my paints, some clean thinner to clean my paints with. And then when I'm done, I can use the paint that's in this bowl to clean off the brush, or the palette, and then just add this into my cleaning bucket later on. One thing you've seen me do in the paintings is I'm typically wearing latex gloves to protect my hands from getting paint on them. That's mainly because I have no sink down here in the basement and I have no way of washing my hands off or anything, so wearing the disposable gloves makes it a little easier to get paint off my hands quickly if I need to run upstairs or anything like that. They do make a what's called a painter's glove. It's basically a hand lotion you put on and then paint just washes right off. But for me, again, I don't have a sink down here, so I typically stick with the latex gloves. Plastic spoons, these are good. I use these for when I take the cans of the liquid colors for liquid white and liquid clear. I'll use the plastic spoons to spoon that what I need out onto the plastic plates. That way I don't have to leave the whole can sitting open during the whole painting. One other item too, that when I finish a painting, once it's dry, I put a quick coat of spray varnish on it. That basically just helps protect the paint a little bit more and also brings out the colors a little bit more too, I think. So, but these are some more of the tools that I use when I'm doing my paintings. Canvases that you use on your paintings is very important as well. You do not, in this wet on wet painting technique, want to use what's called a canvas board. It does tend to dry out the paints, from what I've heard, a lot faster, and makes the painting a little bit more unworkable. The canvases I use come pre-stretched, basically meaning that they've got the frame around the edges of the painting that the canvas is stretched over. It's also double primed. It comes with 2 coats of primer on it, basically to give you a good little bit. These canvases have a little bit of tooth, which is good for getting the paint to stick to them and making them work. I've got several. They come in different sizes. There's 5 different sizes from the Bob Ross's painting supplies. This is the 9x12, which is the smallest of the painting sizes, all the way up to the 18x24, which is primarily what I've been using. A couple other things you might want to consider too. I know on one of my paintings for the Moonville Tunnel, you saw me do a nice oval with the tunnel in the middle and everything. This is another example, basically, where I took poster board and cut a outline out of it. And then what I did was I took, this is regular contact paper like what you get from Lowe's or Home Depot, and basically cut the design out, applied the outline then to the canvas, making sure it sticks, and then you do the painting, pull the contact paper off, and then you have this nice design left on the canvas. This was probably pretty difficult. Well, it was the most difficult of the outlines that I've done so far, in that basically because of the complexity of the curves and everything. Obviously for this I had to simplify the borders of the state of Ohio a little bit to make it a little easier to work with. One thing too, to get the contact paper to stick and stay stuck, what you might want to do is put a hairdryer on low heat and blow on the contact paper to make it stick a little bit more to the canvas. That's one thing I haven't done yet, which I'm definitely going to try the next time, because when I did this painting, when I got down here and I was putting in the grass, this edge here started flipping up a little bit, so luckily I was able to save the painting and not lose anything. This is one of my favorite paintings that I've done. It's gotten a lot of compliments with when I've shown it to folks. But you know, you can do it with any state. This one, the inspiration for this was Florida's Glory, which Bob Ross did, where he did a painting of basically in the outline of the state of Florida, and then in the one corner he added a palm tree. And you can do this basically with any state. Wyoming, Colorado might be a little difficult with only 4 edges, but just kidding. Anyone living in those states, but this is a neat idea, I think, to try different states and kind of get like a typical scene of what you see in each state and put it in the border of the state, and I think it turned out really nice for this one. So for doing my paintings, I use what's called the Bob Ross 2-in-1 easel. Nice thing with this easel, it's height adjustable. The legs extend to raise this up higher. Basically, I've got clamp-on light up on top to make sure the canvas is nicely lit for when I do the paintings themselves. This top part here that holds the canvas, it actually comes off, and you can use it then as a tabletop canvas or a tabletop easel. So if you want to sit down like at the kitchen table, that kind of thing. And this part here also tilts, so you can tilt it up, down, however, to make it a little easier to paint, or however, whatever angle you want to paint it at. And basically this bar here goes up and down, and this is what holds the canvas on. And you can hold it to basically 2 foot in height, 24 inches in height for the canvas, then however wide you're comfortable painting with. So this is the top half of the canvas, or of the easel. And this is the bottom part of the easel, where a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff that you don't get to see on the YouTube videos occurs. One thing I did was I put several magnets underneath this bar here, and they're held in place with masking tape. But what this does, basically allows me to hold the big brushes, 2 and 1 inch brushes, out of the way of the shelf, and basically it also helps dry them out after I'm done cleaning them. The easel does come with a shelf. It has a hole in one end where you put your bucket for your, this holds paint thinner, and about an inch off the bottom there's a screen where you basically scrub your brushes to clean them. Has a nice area for putting in or laying out your brushes. Smaller brushes, I keep these all together. Basically, this is an old ragu can, or ragu jar, and I just wash that out and use that to keep my smaller brushes all together. Also helps reduce clutter here on the shelf. There's also room for paper towels to sit out. You can also put your paint thinner, old paint thinner, liquid colors, that kind of thing, over there on the other end. Paper towels, I always recommend having a roll of paper towels handy. And if you get the select a size, you can cut them in half, and then you can use just these small pieces rather than a whole sheet of paper towels. I also recommend getting a sturdy paper towel like Bounty, which is what I use. Something that's not going to tear apart and put lint on your canvas. If you're, it's like for the liquid white, when you put the liquid white on, you basically put it on, then you wipe off the canvas with the paper towel, and you have just enough liquid clear. Or excuse me, yeah, liquid clear is what you want to use. And basically use the paper towel to wipe off any excess. That way you have a good surface to work on. There's a little bit of there's a couple bars here that hold the legs in place. You can put a shelf in here as well, which is what I did with the container, and this is where I usually put my palette and stuff. Paint thinner. Basically, you want to use paint thinner, odorless paint thinner, to clean your brushes. And then once you get your brushes cleaned off, you hear me doing this on camera from time to time. This is a trash can where basically we have the brush beater rack that beat the brushes off. This knocks off all the excess paint and thinner to basically make your brushes dry out and clean, nice and clean for next application. So that's kind of behind the scenes here of what you see and hear me doing on camera. So going a little bit further behind the scenes, normally behind my canvas and the easel, you see a green sheet. It's just an old bed sheet that I no longer use, and I put it on there to basically hide the wall and hide these shelves that I have behind the easel. This is where I basically keep a lot of my extra supplies and everything. I've got another shelf on the other side of the basement, on the other side of the layout, where I keep my extra canvases and everything, as well as my finished paintings that are boxed up. But this is basically a shelving unit I had from my first apartment up in Ashland. Basically, it was designed for fitting over the back of a toilet. Ever since then, though, every bathroom I've had in the places I've lived, I've never had a need for that. So when I was getting my studio set up, I saw this sitting in one corner collecting dust, and I was like, that'll come in very handy to store everything, try and keep everything in order. Plus it keeps everything up off the floor and stuff too, to give me a little space on the floor. This past winter, one thing I did was I put a pegboard. This is held on basement walls by Gorilla Tape, and then use thumbtacks basically for holding these binder clips. I put these on the end of a tube, and now I have all my tubes of paint nicely, neatly organized in order to have ready. And I can easily see too, what paints I'm getting low on. Like Alizarin Crimson here, I'm getting low on that, so I've got the next tube that's ready to go in and take care of that. Same thing with like cadmium yellow. Basically, so I've got room for my regular paints, then for any extras too I can put out as well and have those ready to go. But I just added this weekend, or not this weekend, this last winter, and it came in very handy to basically help add a little more space on my shelves, get the paints where I can easily get to them. In the past, I would go to grab one paint tube, and the rest would fall over like bowling pins. So having this has helped out a lot. You can also use a cork board, and that'll make it a little easier to put the thumbtacks in, because for this I had to hammer in the thumbtacks to get them to go in. But something like this is handy too for around your studio if you're getting serious into painting, and help you get organized and clean up some clutter and stuff like that. About 3 years ago, there was an artist on YouTube who showed how to make display easels out of 2x3s, or excuse me, 1x3s, and I kind of that's where I got the idea to build these for taking oil paintings out to family reunions, that kind of thing. Only variation I did with on his design though was basically instead of one shelf, I designed mine with my size of paintings that I use. I made two shelves out of it, basically dividing the shelf into two pieces for separate shelves. That allows me to put two canvases on one display easel, so I could easily put like 4 canvases out. And these come in handy here at home for after I've done a painting. I can set them out on this to let them dry if I need to reuse my regular easel. And I also have another display easel that I use too. It's a tabletop one I got from Home Depot a while back when I first started. But these come in handy to basically just display my work, and like I said, put wet paintings out if I need a little extra time to dry, that kind of thing. And turned out pretty well. Not 100% perfect. I've got them kind of scrunched up right now because of the space in my studio, but basically they expand when they sit out a little bit further, and there's a rope then that ties the third leg back to the front, so that way it doesn't do the splits and go out and fall over or anything. And then the shelves, then I can easily just move the shelves up and down by moving the pegs up and down. These are basically just wooden dowels that I cut to size and then stick these in the holes the same, a little bit larger than the dowels themselves. And the paintings just sit right on the shelves, so works pretty well, I think. This was a little exercise that I did a while back. This is also an excellent tool for when I do my oil paintings. This is basically a color chart of all of the Bob Ross colors, starting with titanium white, working all the way down to the bright red. And basically, it's divided in half because colors look differently on light and dark canvas surfaces or in backgrounds. So basically, going across, basically, like titanium white is mixed with all the colors, and here and basically the colors were mixed about half and half except for the true colors, which are on the diagonal. But basically you can vary these even more by taking the colors to one side, more to one color or the other, or adding a third or fourth color, or lightening or darkening it, that kind of thing. So this basically just kind of gives an idea of how to adjust the colors. It gives me an idea too, if I'm looking for a certain shade of green, I can look at these and kind of see which is close to what I'm looking for, and then I can play around and vary the colors a little bit more if I need to. But this has come in handy too, I think, to help out with color mixing and figure out what colors I want to use on a painting. Another tool that comes in handy for an artist is what's called a mall stick. That allows you to basically keep your hands up here close to the canvas without actually touching the canvas, and allows you to get in there to do your detail work. Fortunately, I have not found one in any of the artist stores or any place I've looked. At least I haven't seen anything that I actually liked, because one thing I'm always wanting to do is keep anything from touching a wet canvas, to keep from messing up any detail work I've put in. So what I've come up with is that this is actually a metal yardstick, and this has a 2-inch C-clamp on the end. You could probably do a 1-inch C-clamp, but basically to do any detail work, this basically hooks around the end of the canvas, and basically then I can rest my hand on this one's a little, I think up a little bit. There we go. So anyways, basically you can rest your hand on the yardstick rather than getting it on the wet canvas. And I've used this a few times for detail work and paintings, and it's worked out pretty good. And saved me having to buy a new one, hobby store or anything like, or artist store or anything like that too. And I can just take the C-clamp off, then I've got C-clamp and yardstick to use elsewhere if I need to. Of course, if you're like me, you like to have a little bit of music to play in the background when you're doing any work around home, or just trying to relax. Paintings, no exception. I like to listen to music when I'm doing an oil painting. Obviously I can't do it on YouTube because of copyright issues, that kind of thing. But for like when I did my version of Bob Ross's Cliffside, right here, I had Jaws and Jaws 2 playing on that when I was playing, or painting that. For the haunted house painting that you saw me do a while back, I would probably be listening to soundtracks from the Amityville Horror or Poltergeist. Other music that I like to listen to is just basically a variety of everything. Of course, nothing says fun like the Doors. Probably the largest section of reference material in my library is my Bob Ross collection of DVDs and books. I have all 31 series of The Joy of Painting in my library, as well as all 31 of the books corresponding to those series. In addition to that, I also have all of his instructional videos, as well as the floral and wildlife painting videos and books. Each of the 31 series of The Joy of Painting is currently on DVD, and they are also available online, showing all 31 episodes, or all 13 episodes of each series on 3 discs for each of the DVDs. And then in the books are basically set up so you can basically look through them in any order. They have an introduction from Bob Ross, and then he goes into the instructions or introductions for all the materials and all of the paints and everything that gets used in each of the paintings. And then you also have, for each painting, you have a full color painting, the instructions, and then you have step-by-step pictures showing you how to do each painting. And even if you don't take up painting, it's a beautiful book. They're beautiful books to look through and just admire the work that he did in all the paintings of the shows. The books are a little more detailed than what you see in the show, because in the show he was, of course, restricted to a half hour to do each painting. But each of these, he had more time outside of the show to do more work on the detailing of the paintings. This is one of my favorites, Indian Summer. Kind of shows here how, contrary to what a lot of critics say, he didn't just do all mountains and everything like that. He did a lot of other beautiful paintings. This is one that I'm probably going to try to replicate myself. It's one of my favorites from the show. Has a lot of beautiful colors, and just it's really peaceful to look at, in my opinion. In addition to the 31 series of The Joy of Painting, Bob Ross also, in the mid to late 80s, did a 3-hour workshop video, which of course is on DVD now. Basically the video, it's 3 hours long, and first half hour he goes through several different kinds of skies. The second half hour he goes through several mountains. Third half hour goes through several trees. Fourth half hour he goes through several water effects, waterfalls, crashing waves, rivers, that kind of thing. And then at the end of the last hour, he basically goes through an entire painting, and he not only shows how to paint the painting, he shows how to correct errors, and intentionally making errors as he goes along, and then showing how to correct them. If you're getting into the wet and wet painting technique, it's a really good DVD to watch, because it shows a lot of things on here that you can learn from. In addition to that, he also did a series of 1-hour videos, instructional videos, and there's 9 shows, or 9 instructional videos in all. If you go through all, or if you get the 10-pack from BobRoss.com, you also get the introductional 10th DVD, which is an introduction video that he did for all the materials and everything. We're talking about all the brushes, paints, and everything else that he did used on the show. And then you have, of course, all the 1-hour DVDs for each of the 1-hour paintings that he did, where he goes through from preparing the canvas to the completed signature on the painting. And these are also very good for if you're learning how to paint too, because he goes into a little bit more detail than what he does in the show. Another artist that I also watch quite a bit of, or who I have watched videos for, and as well as purchased several of his DVDs, is Kevin Hill out in California, who has a lot of instructional videos on YouTube, and as well as on DVD. And he's a really amazing artist to watch paint as well. So that's another artist who I enjoy watching. And this here's the rest of my library of books from other artists that I've picked up over the past few years. Basically books that I've either seen online or picked up in bookstores, basically to help give me a little insight for other artists' views in constructing paintings, you know, choosing subject matter, that kind of thing to paint. And it's been helpful, I think, to get different views of different artists. Of course, everyone has their own views. It seems like there's many views of how to paint as there are artists, I think so. But being open to other artists has helped me out a lot, I think. And this is the large reference book that I was mentioning earlier that I've been working on for quite a while. Cost a bit to print out because I went through a lot of color ink cartridges, as you can imagine, but these are all photos that I have downloaded either off the internet or Facebook, pictures that people have sent me, or pictures I've either taken myself, either in the past or while out on my fitness walks. Some of my fitness walks take me on nature trails around the area, so I get some interesting ideas from there. But each book is then I basically have each book separated into different sections for different categories, for different skies, and sunrises, sunsets, that kind of thing. And this will obviously be a major source too, because I can look at this and get some ideas for how things are in nature and everything that I might not actually be able to go out and see. I got one section here for Devil's Tower out in Wyoming, which is one of my favorite mountains, of course, being a Close Encounters fan. But there's a lot of reference material that I've downloaded and collected over time, and finally I've got everything nicely, neatly organized. Each picture I've got numbered so I can go through the section and figure out, you know, one of the like this picture here, number 80 in the mountains section. You know, I can mark that down and come back to that later easily, knowing where to find it rather than have hundreds and hundreds of pictures just in a folder on my computer. I now have a nice, easy to flip through guide, basically, to help me find where everything's at. Now help organizational wise to hopefully allow me to avoid any painter's block and get a lot more paintings done. So in the time that I've been doing oil paintings, I've read a bit of criticism about Bob Ross and the work he did in terms of his show and books and everything. The way I see it, people that criticize him are, you know, they're entitled to their opinions, but they're basically full of baloney in some of the things they critique him about creating copycat artists and that kind of thing. And, you know, I don't hear this a lot about other TV artists or anything like that, like Bill Alexander or Jerry Arnell and others. But basically, it seems that everyone that I've read criticisms about has always been Bob Ross. And you gotta remember, Bob Ross, he basically, yeah, he started out, you know, working with the Bill Alexander Company, started his own show, and then, you know, developed his own line of products that I use. Now, yes, there's other tools and products and other artists out there you can follow, which, I'm open to other artists, as you've seen in the books I have. I've got a lot of books from other artists, as well as some DVDs of other shows, especially like artist Kevin Hill out in California. And basically what Bob Ross did was create a stepping stone for new artists, and he gave you tools that, these are good quality tools, and that's why I went with his tools, because one, I could get everything in one spot. I didn't have to go shopping all around town or all over the internet. I knew I could go to one spot and find everything I needed to get started on painting. And these are quality tools. I can expand if I want to, but as long as the quality of the products remains the same, I'm going to pretty much stick with these pretty much to stick with what I know and what I know works. As far as creating copyright art or copycat artists, some of the paintings I've done have been based on Bob Ross paintings, like this Bob Ross's Cliffside, which I have here. Now the reason I did a version based on his work was because this is my first true seascape. There's one I did of Nightlight, which is one of my favorites from when I was a kid. But this is one, it's a simple seascape, and following his techniques, I knew it would work, and it gave me learning experience to basically do my own my first seascape. A lot of the paintings that I try to do are not based on Bob Ross paintings. The Bob Ross paintings I do are ones that are favorites of mine, or ones that they provide basically like a learning experience to learn a technique on how to do something. Because if I see him do it on the show, I know it's going to work, and then I can use that to basically learn how to do that technique, and then go off and do it on my own. There are some people, unfortunately, like my one cousin, who's an retired art teacher, found out. Some people, they start painting Bob Ross's techniques, and they only paint his paintings, and then you ask them, what other stuff do you do? And they get offended that they're only doing Bob Ross paintings and nothing else. So, art is very individual. If someone wants to stick with one artist, that's up to them. I'm trying to expand my horizons and everything, but I'm sticking with what I know, that I've known since I was a kid, with Bob Ross's materials and and teaching techniques, and I know that's going to work, and I can expand on that. So that's just my 2 cents, my little time on the soapbox, I guess you could say, to about some of the criticisms I've heard about Bob Ross. But I love working with his materials, and I love listening to techniques and everything from all the artists. Bob Ross, always kept it fun, and some of the artists I've read, they get a little too technical in setting up the paintings and everything, and structuring the paintings and everything, and I don't want to get too technical when I do my paintings, because that takes the fun out of it. If you're going to do something, you want to make it worthwhile. You want it to be fun. You want to enjoy it. Just my 2 cents. So, well, that's going to be it for this episode. Next time, I'm hoping when I do an actual oil painting, I'm going to go through the whole preparation process as well as the cleanup as well, to allow you to see that, since that's something that rarely gets shown on any painting shows on TV or online or anything. So hopefully we'll be able to take you through that. As you saw, I've got a lot of ideas that I'm going through to come up with ideas for paintings. So hopefully I'll be getting a new painting video around very shortly. So in the meantime, let me know if there's anything you'd like to see or have any questions. Feel free to leave a comment below or drop me an email from the website, and I'll be glad to answer them as fast as I can, and as best as I can. So in the meantime, take it easy, happy painting. The tools I use, and hopefully give you some ideas that you can get started with. So first thing we're going to do is to give me a little space on the floor. One addition that I just for blooper reel for the wood chime as I'm starting to record. Are you on camera? Huh? What you doing, buddy? Huh? Wanna look? Look. Aw. It's my little baby. Aren't ya? Alright. And this is my other monster. Say hi. Aren't you cute? Yeah.
This program was brought to you by KLW Art, creating original and custom hand-painted oil paintings. Visit us online at klwart.com.